Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, today we're going to be looking at two stories of bizarre phenomena. One, a time slip story, and another, some person says that he has missing time when he was out on the road. Let's get into the first article, Lost Time on the Open Highway, a long-haul trucker's unexplained 500-mile glitch. Let's get into this account and hear this trucker's full story. When a veteran long-haul truck driver set out from Moriarty, New Mexico, he expected another routine overnight haul. Instead, he woke up 500 miles away in Oklahoma City with no memory of the drive and a GPS log that didn't add up. Was it a simple fleet computer error, highway hypnosis, or something far stranger happening on America's roads late at night? Let's get into the full story of this trucker's encounter, folks, with the unknown. Hi, I'm a long-haul truck driver. Let me start my story by mentioning that my truck is equipped with GPS and a computer that monitors my driving to ensure I always comply with legal requirements. One night at approximately 7 o'clock, I left Moriarty from New Mexico and headed eastbound toward Springfield, Missouri. As I was driving along, the next thing I knew, I was pulling into a gas station in Oklahoma City, and it was about 5 o'clock a.m. Usually, that drive takes around 7 hours. At first, I thought nothing of it. I figured I had just been driving at night and was probably tired. However, it didn't feel like I had actually driven the distance. It felt more like I had watched myself drive. It was an extraordinary experience, but I continued with my trip because I still had a few hours left on my driving clock. At 8 a.m. that morning, I received a phone call from my boss asking me what I had done to my truck. Confused, I asked, "What do you mean? What did I do to my truck?" He explained, "Your truck went off GPS about 40 miles east of Moriarty, New Mexico, and reappeared on GPS at 5 a.m. in Oklahoma City." He continued, "You must have done something to your truck. Did you pull a fuse to drive illegally?" I replied, "No, I have never driven illegally in my life." Still not quite understanding what was happening, he transferred me to another boss who oversees legal compliance in the trucking industry. She looked up my information and said, "Yes, your logbook is incorrect. It shows that you were stationary and didn't drive for 4 hours during those 9 hours." I was baffled and asked, "What could have caused that? I don't understand what would happen." She replied, "Oh, this happens occasionally." I asked, "What do you mean, occasionally?" She explained, "It usually happens to truck drivers 2 or 3 times a week." I then inquired, "What can cause this? I don't want it to happen again." She told me, "Computer systems, the company just calls it a glitch." I responded, "I've seen glitches in computer systems, but they usually last for only 4 or 5 minutes. This was different. Under normal circumstances, I would have dismissed it as a simple lapse. However, upon reflection, I realized it was pretty unusual. I had found myself in Oklahoma City without a clear memory of how I got there. When I tried to recall the drive, it felt as though I wasn't entirely present. It was like I was watching it happen from a distance. And God knows what actually happened to our witness here, folks. What happened to him? Was he abducted? Why did his, computer say that he was stationary? And why did he arrive in Oklahoma City with absolutely no memory of what had happened to him? Could this have been an alien abduction? Let's read on. I later called the experiencer and asked if he had zoned out, which is something that can happen to people who regularly drive to the exact locations. He replied, "In normal circumstances, I would agree with you, but this happened at the same time my computer glitched. It shows that I drove around 500 miles, yet my GPS doesn't match my logbook. My logbook indicates that I stopped for 4 hours. I asked her about the frequency of these glitches, and she mentioned they happen 2 or 3 times a week with our fleet of 5,000 trucks. That could be a result of computer glitches. However, it doesn't feel entirely right to me. I've driven so many times that I can recall specific details about the trip, such as where a tire was in the road at a particular mile marker, but with this experience, I can't remember anything in detail. It all feels like a fog. B. So, what did happen to B here? He can't recall anything, and the fact that his computer pretty much backs up everything that the man experienced pretty much tells me that something happened here, folks. Now, it could have been the government. We talked about before, folks, that maybe the government is testing drugs or other technology on people, and maybe this man was picked for something like this to happen. But the fact that it seems to happen so often to truckers now, maybe even to other people as well on the road, makes me think that there is something more going on here, folks. Maybe indeed it's both the government and perhaps maybe beings from beyond this planet. Indeed, folks. But let's move on to the next article. Time warp at San Juan, New Mexico power plant. Did an archaeologist step into the past? Let's read this archaeologist's account of what happened to him now. What began as a routine archaeological survey near Farmington, New Mexico, turned into something extraordinary under the glow of a full moon. Was it a vivid dream, a Navajo ceremony echoing through time, or did a lone researcher truly slip into a window to the year 1050 AD? Let's read on. And I don't want to sound like a parrot, folks, but let's find out now. I think I experienced a time warp. This has only happened to me once, but it was pretty impressive. I left the U.S. Marines in 1971 and returned to the University of New Mexico. I worked on a couple of archaeological field schools as a photographer initially. I was an archaeology major, but I decided to switch to anthropology while taking classes in archaeology. One of my professors offered me the opportunity to take a couple of semesters off to work with the Museum of New Mexico, conducting survey work. So I dropped out of school, went up to Santa Fe, and ended up surveying a coal mining area near Farmington. I worked on the San Juan power plant, which spread across the river from the Four Corners power plant. The lease covered approximately 2 miles in width and 8 miles in length. My partner and I spent several weeks surveying the entire area on foot. The guy I was working with was a bit unpredictable, so I decided to stay on the lease instead of going off into town, as it was becoming increasingly dangerous. One night, while I was sleeping in my tent under a full moon, I heard singing and drum beats coming from about a quarter of a mile away. I could see a large campfire, and against the cliff face, shadows of people dancing. There were also figures moving on the ridge in the moonlight. This went on for 2 or 3 hours. At that time of year, the Navajo people hold a nighttime ceremony called the squaw dance, where girls ask boys to dance, and it's considered an issue if you decline. Around 2 or 3 in the morning, the sounds quieted down. The next morning, my partner hadn't shown up yet. He often arrived late, so I decided to hike over to check out what I had witnessed the night before. To my surprise, there were no tracks at all, nothing. I stood amidst untouched ruins from around 1050 AD. The soil was mainly compacted shell, which typically shows tracks very well, yet there was nothing. It was all very vivid in my mind. I walked back to my tent, and that was the end of it. Tea. But was that really basically it? I mean, T cannot possibly explain what he saw, folks. Except that maybe it was a mistake, that maybe there were people out there, but maybe they covered their tracks, perhaps? I mean, is that maybe a Navajo tradition to basically cover the tracks up after a party? To leave no trace? I have my doubts about that, folks. Maybe this man really saw something. Maybe it was some sort of lapse in time. He saw into the past. Or maybe these people really were there up and partying and having some fun, doing a traditional Navajo ceremony. But we can't be for sure, folks. All we know in these kinds of cases where people have time slips or missing time, things happen. Sometimes we can blame them on phenomena that we've basically heard about in pop culture and in strange circles, like alien abduction, or it's the government, folks. Or in these cases with time slips, perhaps maybe time itself isn't as unbending as we like to believe, folks. Either way, what happened here is truly bizarre. I've said that a lot, folks, but in these two cases, it makes me think that there's more to them than we can really say. I really feel like in the first story with the trucker, that him and other truckers and perhaps other people who have experienced missing time, that maybe there's something doing it, some sort of intelligence. Either maybe it has elements of the government involved in it, and maybe there are other elements we can't really naturally explain, but I do feel like that is the case here. The thing with the time slip, maybe it has a relationship to what we've always talked about before, folks, about time slips, interdimensional travel, and other such phenomena. Perhaps, folks, that maybe reality isn't what we always like to believe, as I said, and perhaps people can see, sometimes beneath it, and see into the past or even beyond this world. But that's just me, folks. Either way, until more information is available for us to learn about these subjects, we just have to wait. But now we're at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics, they're bad for you. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions of the chat to go subscribe to me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure to hit the part of the bell that'll give you all future notifications. And please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.